I'm going to have to be honest. You're probably the least playful human I've had on the show in like 130 episodes here. You're a quantitative analysis in finance doing statistical modeling and machine learning. So we should probably ask people, why are you here? What was your big adventure that brought you here on the show?
Yeah. So I definitely whole different side of the brain, but in 2019 on April 15th, actually, so we're coming up on 4 years, I rode my dad's 30-year-old bicycle from Central Park in New York City, 5,775 miles over the course of 95 days, all the way to Seward, Alaska. And it rained. I used to remember the exact percentage, but I think it was like 73% of the time it was like torrential downpour. So it was brutal.
And you were taking weather data along the way, so you actually counted this. And
yeah. Oh yeah.
You did not pick a good time of year. You picked a 30-year-old bicycle. And I also saw in your story, you didn't train a whole lot. It's not like you were a college cyclist and this was a lifelong dream. So I'm going to get to the lessons learned. But let's first go back to like, why did you even decide to do this in the first place?
Yeah. So I get that a lot because, like you said, I think the most amount of miles I ever rode before I started on day one was like 15 maybe or 20. Or there was one weekend I rode from like Atlantic City back to my hometown, North Jersey, which is like 40 miles maybe. But yeah, so it kind of all started with grad school. So for the longest time, I wanted to go to grad school for statistics, and there was this research grant that it was through the National Science Foundation, and I was applying to that, but I realized like I don't have anything really outstanding in my life to talk about in the sense of like, there's so many people that apply for this grant. Like what would make me stand out? And then I went to, coincidentally, this was all happening in tandem. I went to the doctor just for like a routine checkup, and they found this heart condition that I had. And that was kind of my bingo. Because they didn't really know much about it. It's not that they didn't know much about it. It's just that for me, someone like myself, who's very generally athletic, like I'm a general, otherwise healthy individual. They were like very confused as to why I wasn't super lethargic and why I wasn't overweight and like all this other stuff, given this this heart problem. So with that being said, that was kind of the impetus for the whole thing. I'm like, oh, I can write about this because they don't have any data on it. And granted, it was a N of one, kind of a pilot study, if you will, but that was what got the gears turning. I didn't end up getting the grant, but I was so far along at that point that I'm like, well, I'm not bagging out now. Like I'm already pot committed. So I guess I got to go through with this thing. I made a website, had all, hundreds of people following me and everything. So at that point I was like, all right, well, you know what? It's time. Like I'm ready to do this. And at the end of the day, it was really about how far can I push myself? Because I really just wanted to, I just wanted something to prove to myself that I can go way above and beyond what I thought was possible. And also just to get out there and really see the world for how it is and meet some of the people who are just salt of the earth. Every day, you and me, not the people you see on TV. So that was kind of the reason. Yeah.
I love it for several reasons, and I want to dive into all of it. First, I have to award you 5 bonus points for get your gears turning metaphor you used in coming up with the idea. But second, this is what I love about it and why I wanted you on the show. Playful Humans is all about remembering to go outside and play and mix it up and improv and do some things that you're sure won't work. And maybe a little anti-tech, but not necessarily. It's just like, you don't need to measure your steps if you're riding a bike across the country. Like you're getting your exercise in that day, right? That there's some blatantly obvious stuff that if you want to be more social media is probably not the place to go. You got to go actually talk to humans that you mentioned. So I love all of that, but I did want to ask you, as somebody who is into machine learning and statistical numbers, and that was a large part of your trip, how do you balance those two things. Do you think I kind of see them as two different tanks, and I got to keep them both full? I need a little bit of both, and moving between the two is really interesting. But did you see this as a play activity, or did you see it as lifelong learning? And I'm sure you have insane amounts of flat tires and challenges that you run into that you can't plan for, you can't measure. Like, this isn't a thing that you can easily control, right?
So it, it's interesting you said, because for one thing, my dad, when he was 25, he went from New Jersey to California, and then my parents, and then when him and my mom met, and a couple years later, they tried to go to Alaska, but then I was born and I got in the way, stopped that whole trip. So it part of it was like, oh, I gotta finish their trip. But then the other part about having like the flat tires and the preparation, I disassembled that bike down to its frame every single day. I might not have rode that many miles. I might not have physically trained, which I probably should have, but I stripped that thing down to know exactly how to fix every single part of that, so that, because I'm like, I don't want to be stranded in Nebraska with no idea of how to fix my bike, or have to rely on some guy who's going to charge me an arm and a leg to fix it. So I was super prepared, but I really thought of it as just a mission. Like I really wanted to just, it was just something I wanted to prove to myself, just to show like I can do this seemingly insurmountable feat. And then if I can do this, when I go to grad school, or when I go any other challenge in the rest of my life, I'm like, it's not that bad. I just rode my bike across North America. Right. So,
I love that so much
yeah,
too, because I talk about that in a lot of the stuff that I do, like performing on big stages or other things. And like, once something goes wrong, either in a live broadcast or in front of like 12,000 people on stage, you become bulletproof as a performer, because you're like, all right, well, nothing's going to be worse than that one gig I did,
right.
and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I think there is
It's a bar.
something to resilience when you push yourself like that, that it makes everything else easier, which is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that was like, that's the one thing where like there were so many things that went wrong. I knew it wasn't going to be a joyride. I knew it wasn't going to be sunshines and rainbows, but I had no idea how, like, I totally discounted the weather. Like, I thought, oh, it might rain a couple days here and there, but that was really like the torture. Like, every day, all my stuff is moldy and mildewy, and like I- every day I'm like, I'm going to either change my destination or give up. But, just inch by inch, you just keep clawing your way to the real finish line.